Hello everyone, this is going to be a video focusing on the specifics of mini turbos. If you're new to Mario Kart DS and you seem to be struggling a little bit with getting consistent mini turbos, or if you just want a little bit of insight on how the mechanic works so you can be a little bit more deliberate with it, this video basically aims to clue you in on the exact inputs needed to perform a mini turbo, as well as some caveats with the mechanic. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not an expert, nor am I even really very experienced at this game, but I have noticed that some tutorials out there are just pretty vague and don't really outline the specific inputs that you need to perform a mini turbo consistently every single time, which is fine. I'm not throwing shade on those videos or discrediting them at all. All the beginner's guides out there for this game are fantastic, and they're much more informed than I probably ever will be. My only aim with this video is to specifically outline inputs and caveats with this specific mechanic, which is so integral to Mario Kart DS, in hopes to maybe give some more mechanically focused learners a clearer picture of what you really need to do to perform consistent mini turbos. I do agree that it is feel mostly, but I feel like you can build muscle memory and feel more effectively if you have a clear picture of what is going on inputs wise. So yeah. Hope you enjoy and hope you get something out of this. Let's jump right into it. So I'm sure what most of you have heard from tutorials is in order to do a mini turbo, you drift and then you rock your your D-pad back and forth. And while that is true to an extent, I feel like that's just really vague and doesn't really give you a full picture of what's going on. And it is something that you need in order to like, for example, do snaking, because it's just, you need to be able to just deliberately do mini turbos on the spot instantly, right? So that's the only issue with this approach to mini turbos, is when, people just tell you, hey, just rock the D-pad back and forth, bro. And it's like, sometimes a mini turbo takes longer for you to do, sometimes it takes shorter, sometimes it feels really consistent, other times it doesn't, because you're not really doing a specific set of inputs that will do a mini turbo every time. You're just told, oh, just rock the D-pad back and forth, bro, and so you're just sitting there rocking the D-pad until your your mini turbo comes out. And for the most part, yeah, this works. It still gets you your mini turbos, but it's not intentional. It's not deliberate. You're not specifically thinking in your brain, I'm going to do a mini turbo right now. You're more so thinking, okay, I'm going to rock my D-pad back and forth so that a mini turbo comes out, right? And in my opinion, at least, that's not really effective practice, because you are not really understanding the inputs that you're doing. You're just kind of feeling it out until it clicks, whereas you can just learn what the actual inputs are and it clicks instantly, and you can practice it in a more deliberate manner no matter what. So here's what we're going to do. So let's look at this graphic here that I'm going to make, this literally MS Paint looking graphic that I'm going to make here. Let's imagine that this is a turn on a track, right? So you're doing a race and there's a turn here, and you're of course going to be drifting here. So imagine these are your four wheels, right? You are drifting, right? Because you're sideways. Let's say you're drifting into this corner. Let's draw some fucking smoke here. You're drifting into a corner, right? I want you to start to think of turns and drifting turns specifically in a little bit of a different light. So when you're drifting throughout a corner, obviously you can turn into the corner more, which makes you angle towards the direction that you're turning more, or you can turn out of the corner a little bit, straighten your car a little bit more, and move outside of the direction that you're turning a little bit. I want you to keep this in mind when you're drifting throughout a corner. And I want you to think of this as in and this as out. So pretty simple. When you're turning right, if you turn right even more, you're turning into the corner more. And if you turn left, you're going to turn out of the corner a little bit more, right? And vice versa if it's the other way around, right? Turning left will mean that you're turning into the corner, while turning right means you're turning out of the corner because it's the opposite direction of where you're drifting, right? So I want you to try to think of turns this way when you're drifting through a corner from now on. In is the same direction of your drift. Out is the opposite direction of your drift, right? So I want you to assign this in and out to directional inputs. So you have your D-pad. In this case, since you're drifting left, the left directional input would be in and the right directional input would be out. So now that we have this illustrated, right? In and out should be assigned to inputs depending on which way you're turning. So whichever way you're turning, whatever input points towards the inner corner, the inner part of the corner, is in and the opposite is out, right? It sounds a lot more complicated than it is, obviously. But it's pretty logical when you're actually inside the race, inside the corner, right? There is a certain input that points you towards the inner part of the track, and there's a certain input that points you towards the outer part of the track, right? And this is really important because this basically directly correlates to the inputs that you need to do when you are trying to do a mini turbo. So let's head back into the track and let's watch this in real time. So here we are on figure 8 circuit, and you can see my inputs here. And let's talk about why this all matters, okay? So provided that you've assigned in and out to directional inputs, let me go over the exact inputs that you're going to need to do a mini turbo. So if you think about directional inputs in the way that I told you as out and in, depending on which way you're turning, the inputs that you're going to do a perfect mini turbo every time are going to be, you start your drift, then you press out, in, out, in. It's that simple. Start your drift, out, in, out, in. So again, drift, out, in, and there's your mini turbo. Out, in, out, in. Since we're turning left, this would be drift, right, left, okay? Basically, memorize that, try to commit it to muscle memory. Here on a right turn, it's the opposite. Left, right, right? Out, in, left, right, okay? It's that simple. And even with snaking, if you're drifting towards the left, you do right, left, and you have your mini turbo. If you are drifting to the right, it's left, right, and you get your mini turbo, okay? So, out, in, 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 right? Snaking, same thing, out, in, 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 out, in. So essentially, if you're turning left, the inputs would be, so start the drift, then right, left, 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 right, left. And for the right turn, it'd just be the opposite. Towards the right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and so on. It really is that simple. And once you start to think about it this way, you can do a mini turbo instantly without needing to basically just rock your D-pad back and forth and hope that the mini turbo comes out fast enough. Now you have a deliberate formula that you can apply and deliberate inputs to do whenever you just want to do a mini turbo on the spot. And now that you have these inputs, you can memorize them, you can commit them to muscle memory, and then speed them up over time. And I'm not saying that just learning to do it by, rocking your D-pad back and forth and getting a feel for it isn't effective. That's certainly a totally valid way to learn how to do it, but it just takes longer. It takes longer than having a formula you can apply, especially one as simple as this. Now, there is one caveat that I want to talk about that is really important that will avoid any confusion that you might have when this happens, because it stumped me a lot when I was first starting. So, sometimes I would initiate a drift, right? And the out, in wouldn't trigger the mini turbo. So I'm going to do it right now. And you're going to see that if you look at my inputs on the bottom left, I'm going to do the out, in, and it's only going to trigger a blue spark, okay? It's not going to trigger a full mini turbo. Drift, out, in, and you can see only the blue sparks appeared. You can pause it and watch it back again, but I'm going to do it again. Out, in, and nothing happens. You only get the blue sparks, right? Do it one more time. Out, in, and you only get the blue sparks. Why? Why does that happen? I used to blame it on my controller. I thought the controller was just straight up doing misinputs. But the issue was that I was counter steering before my wheels touch the ground. Now, what is countersteering? Countersteering is when you drift in a certain direction and you steer in the opposite direction. You cannot countersteer before your wheels hit the ground, or else the mini turbo will not work. Or rather, it will work, but it will take longer to do. So if you want to countersteer, if you take a corner too tight or whatever, or you just want to countersteer to change your line, you need to wait until your wheels touch the ground. Here's me countersteering before the wheels touch the ground, out, in, and it doesn't do it. I have to do an extra out, in order for the mini turbo to trigger properly. However, if I wait until my wheels touch the ground to countersteer, the mini turbo triggers successfully. If you initiate a drift and you press the opposite direction of the drift before your wheels touch the ground, your mini turbo will not trigger properly. You will need an extra rock of the D-pad, if you will, in order for the mini turbo to trigger. I should mention one more thing, and other tutorials do cover this a little bit. They do say that you can't do it too fast or else the mini turbo don't work. The reason why that is because there is a cooldown period between the two states. The two states being the blue sparks and the orange sparks. There is a 17 frame cooldown, at least I believe it's 17 frames, I could be wrong on that, between the point where you hit your blue sparks and the point where you're allowed to do the orange sparks. So if you think about it as the out-in cycles, like I was telling you before, basically you do your drift, right? Make sure not to countersteer before your wheels hit the ground, and then you do your first out-in, then you wait a second, then you do the next out-in. If you do the out-ins too close together, the orange sparks won't trigger because there's a cooldown between the blue sparks and the moment where you're allowed to do orange sparks. So just keep that in mind, and I would learn this slow anyway. I would go through and sort of really try to build the muscle memory by doing it, pretty slow, and then once you have the muscle memory, you can speed it up. But there is a little bit of a delay between when your blue sparks hit and the moment when you can do orange sparks. It's about 100 milliseconds, so it's not really that long of a period, but just don't spam it, right? Don't try to just do it as fast as humanly possible, because the mini turbo straight up just won't work if the out-in cycles are too close to each other. That's pretty much all. I hope you guys got something out of this video, and please don't hesitate to either correct me or add anything that you think I might have missed in the comments. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe or like or anything because I honestly really don't care about this channel or how many views this gets. This video is literally just purely to help people out that are like really new to the game and are not really understanding how the mini turbos work. So yeah, that's about it.